You know, this is one of those topics that no one really wants to think about, but if you're a parent, a homeowner, married, or helping take care of aging parents, it's something that honestly deserves a little attention. I'm talking about estate planning. And before you tune out thinking it's complicated or expensive, that's actually why I want to mention Trust and Will. Trust and Will makes estate planning feel way less intimidating than it sounds. They offer modern, attorney-designed wills and trusts that you can create online. And the process is surprisingly straightforward. In fact, you can create a will in as little as 30 minutes. That includes things like guardianship for your kids or pets, how your assets are distributed, and even healthcare directives. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your loved ones with Trust and Will, the most trusted name in online estate planning. Go to trustandwill.com/future to get 20% off. That's trustandwill.com/future for 20% off. trustandwill.com/FUTURE.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Yo, what up, and welcome in. It is a hump day edition of Money Moves. Jonathan Von Tobel flying solo for one more day, and we'll be quite literally flying later tonight as I'll head out to Indianapolis. We'll be live from Radio Row tomorrow here for Money Moves. For me, Bet Buffet will be alongside. He'll be in studio being our anchor, as he usually is every time I get to see Femi. And we'll talk a lot about some college basketball Final Four and more. That'll be tomorrow, though, when we are live out in Indianapolis. Today, we are here in Vegas, taking in a lot of baseball. Now, usually, we will start every single show with a rundown, but because we have so much going on at this point right now, I know we like to start our shows. You don't normally do it. Today, we will not, because baseball is underway. We have some first pitches coming up in the next 15 to 20 minutes that we want to get some previews on, and we also have quite a few games that we want to update as well. So today is going to be a little mini version of a live Bet Wednesday, if you will, as we're keeping track of everything going on in a really good day, and something Major League Baseball needs to do more of, which is throw a lot of these games out during the day, as we have proposed here on this show. Maybe some more day games in the NBA as well. When you got a full schedule in the regular season, you can get away with some of these games during the day. So let's start with where I'm looking at, which is, of course, out in Cincinnati, because this is part of a bigger picture thought that we have discussed quite a bit here on this program. We've talked about it with Mike Palm as well. Andy Abbott got the start for the Cincinnati Reds, taking on Paul Skeens, one of the headliners of the morning window. 3-1, Pittsburgh up on top right now. We're in the top of the sixth inning. Why this matters is for multiple reasons. First off, let's talk about Paul Skeens. Through 5 right now, he has given up just the 1 earned run. He has walked 2. He has struck out 5, scattered 3 hits over the course of his 5 innings of work at 77 pitches here so far. So Skeens, last time we saw him, of course, on opening day, didn't really go well. Only lasted 2/3 of an inning, gave up 5 earned runs. O'Neal Cruz was part of the process there as well. And a little bit of a shaky start in the outfield today, too, but still nothing catastrophic. The other part about this, though, that we had discussed in the big picture, and we had discussed this as part of the Cincinnati Reds season preview and what you were looking at, it was whether or not Andrew Abbott was going to hold up as a starting pitcher. Abbott was a guy that if you looked at some of the overlying numbers for him from a season ago, maybe some room for regression. And in his lone start that we have seen up to this point, that was against Boston, 6 innings pitched and struck out 4. And we saw that back on the 26th, but you thought maybe there was going to be some room for some regression at some point. Today, you saw a little bit of it early, but Abbott's really settling in. So this is going to be part of the bigger storyline as we're tracking this matchup here. Pirates in this game ended up closing here at Circa. It's about $1.37 favorite in this one. Again, we're out there in the 6th inning. Washington and Philadelphia, top of the 3rd. We are currently in a 1-1 tie between these two. Closing price here, Philly closes a very strong favorite, minus 270 or so, depending on where you look. Sanchez on the hill so far, doing his part for the most part. 3 innings pitched, 1 earned run, has struck out 3. Command has been an issue for him and for some pitchers. We'll talk about Luis Severino coming up here in a little bit, but 3 walks so far for Sanchez, which has helped the Washington Nationals make a little bit of a difference here in this game. Baltimore looking for a victory here against the Texas Rangers. Orioles so far this season gotten off to a little bit of a rough start. This series has gotten off to a rough start. How about that yesterday, by the way? So they're taking on the Texas Rangers. We'll have our best bets in our recap coming up at the end, as we usually do. For those who don't remember, had laid the half run with the Texas Rangers in the first 5. They take a 3-1 lead, and then, of course, what happens? Well, the Baltimore Orioles play 2 in the bottom of the 5th. It's a 3-3 tie, and then the Rangers go on to win the game 8-5 against Baltimore. So a little salty there, and the Orioles trying to make the most of this series right now as they lead 5-2. Got Eovaldi for 5 earned runs today, and again, command kind of being the theme, maybe an early season type of deal for some of these pitchers. 3 walks for Eovaldi, 5 strikeouts. His day is done. so far. With that, some of the other lopsided scores that we have out there, the Athletics are down 5-1, bottom of the sixth inning to the Atlanta Braves and Miami, all over Chicago right now, 6-0. We are in the third inning. For those who don't remember, opening day, we trusted Shane Smith to get it done for us against the Milwaukee Brewers. Got absolutely blasted. Smith getting smoked again today. 2 1/3, 7 hits, 2 walks, 1 strikeout, and 5 earned runs for the White Sox starter today. So Smith, maybe an auto fade for a White Sox team, as many of us had thought was going to be a little bit plucky, an upstart group right now heading toward a 1-5 start to the season. With that, let's talk about our first pitches coming up here in a little bit. In 10 minutes, you do have a rain delay out there in St. Louis. The projected start time between these two, Mets and Cardinals, is for 11:15 Pacific time. So let's get a preview for you here. Current number right now, $1.62 in favor of the Mets and Freddie Peralta. Liberatore is getting the start on the other side, plus 145 coming back. These numbers I'm reciting courtesy of Circa. Obviously, some of the weather is going to impact the way that this game is going to be played here today. Peralta, let's talk about him for a second. We saw him against the Pittsburgh Pirates in his first start. Gave up 4 earned runs, got taken deep twice. Did strike out to 7, so maybe some swing and miss stuff really working for him here, and you can get it done against the St. Louis Cardinals. And on the other end, Liberatore, this was a start that we had discussed a little bit last week against the Tampa Bay Rays. Ended up putting together a strong performance. Probably a little bit more to do with the opponent, Tampa Bay, than anything else. But Liberatore, 5 innings pitched, 7 hits there, but 2 strikeouts, 2 walks. Did get taken deep once for a solo shot. Other than that, a solid performance. But one would expect when you give up that much contact, probably going to pay for it if you do it again, and that's probably the case here. That one start, and for the season now, a 1.80 ERA, but a 6.20 fielding independent. When you're giving up hard contact consistently the way Liberatore did, probably not a great sign of things to come, and one would expect that maybe that regresses here a little bit against the New York Mets. So I think it's accurately priced. But the two games that are here in a couple of minutes are where we really want to focusing on the AL West teams that will be out in a little bit. Houston Astros taking on the Boston Red Sox. Let's start here. It is an ace day. Wednesday has a lot of these aces out on the hill, one of them being Garrett Crochet, who's going to get the start for the Boston Red Sox today. Crochet opens up as about a $1.52 favorite over the Houston Astros. Current number right now, though, got that down to about minus 134, plus 120 coming back. 7 shaded to the over at minus 115. I think you can make the case, the way that this Astros lineup has woken up over the last 3 games, that maybe Crochet was a little overpriced, considering also the start the Red Sox season has been, also can make that case as well. But how about Houston so far in this series? Yesterday against Bayo, absolutely smoke him, jumped all over him in that start. 4 2/3 for Bayo for the Red Sox, 5 earned runs, walked 3, struck out only 2. And this Astros lineup is really starting to churn some stuff out. And Yordan Alvarez is hitting the ball extremely well at this point right now. Alvarez yesterday hits another home run. So far for the season, I think we're sitting on 3 here for Alvarez. He's been absolutely fantastic. 2 hits, 2 of 3, scored twice along with the homer and a walk. So this lineup's been really, really good. Alvarez has been absolutely fantastic, and price-wise, maybe a little strong there. I think the real question is Burrows going to do enough to keep the Astros in this thing and allow their offense to work over the course of this game? Burrows, in the lone start that we have seen for him so far, in the lone outing, 5 2/3 against the Angels as part of that 4-game set that we saw at the beginning of the regular season last week. Angels got to him, though. Took him deep twice. He got charged for 5 total runs there. Strikeout stuff was there, so maybe you can get some here today. 6 Ks in the start, but 2 walks as well. If the home runs are going to be an issue, you could see a situation in which Crochet is going to be able to hold this thing down and do enough to get his team a victory here. I wonder where we're going to get at least maybe some buyback. Again, minus 130, given what you get from Crochet, seems relatively cheap in that minus 134 here at Circa. Some other spots like Superbook at minus 132, other market-wide price, so we can call that minus 140. And then the other start coming up here in about 15 minutes, the Angels. How about this yesterday, really quickly? We have discussed the long-term prospects of Jose Soriano, and we talked about it yesterday, both with Adam Burke, brought it up on the show as part of the preview as well, that maybe he's a guy for the Angels that you want to consistently back, considering how well he can pitch at times. Soriano, and partly backed by weather. Weather was pretty poor yesterday out there in Chicago. Wind was blowing in pretty strong, but still puts together a great performance for the Angels, who get a 2-0 win over the Chicago Cubs yesterday. Now today, Matthew Boyd's going to get the start for the Cubbies here. Opened up as about $1.62 favorite over Yusei Kikuchi. we're still sitting in that price range. You see this at DraftKings right now, minus 168 in favor of the Chicago Cubs. The weather, though, is going to be the real question of how this is going to look for this game here. You see the total of 6, wind blowing directly in, 18 to 20 miles an hour. So you saw yesterday there was a couple of fly balls that absolutely died, even though there was some exit velo of over 100 miles an hour because of how hard that wind was blowing and blowing in at that. So you would expect that maybe yesterday, very low scoring game. Today, slightly more windy, all blowing in, that this is going to be a pretty low scoring affair, which is why the total's here where we're at. Kikuchi in the lone start against the Houston Astros that we have seen from him was admirable, serviceable, did enough to hold that Astros lineup down. It was one of the reasons why we thought that maybe this Astros group was going to have a tough time against better pitchers. That has proven not to be the case so far. 4 1/3, 2 earned against those Astros, scattered 8 hits, struck out 3. So don't expect that maybe a ton of the swing and miss stuff is there. And you do wonder what this Angels defense is going to do in a game in which it's going to be at a premium. Yesterday was fine. Bullpen was fine. It has done enough here to this point, but I don't know if I trust them entirely now. Minus 168, given the wind and the factor of Kikuchi being able to, I think, perform admirably, seems a little high for the Chicago Cubs. So looking at the market right now for the Angels, if you can get that plus price of about plus 145 or so, which a couple of shops do have out there, including BetMGM, South Point's actually hanging plus 150 here on a 10-cent line. Go out there and get that. I think that's a worthy price. All right, really quick update. Andrew Abbott's day is done. Top of the 6th inning. Let's see. We have a development here in the Brewers-Rays game. Top of the 2nd inning, Jacob Misiorowski is getting his second start. This could actually be an interesting game to track. But did you say C.B. Buckner is out of this game, umpire? So there's a delay. C.B. Buckner got hit with a foul ball, so we're waiting to see what's going to happen there. Buckner, unfortunately, making headlines yesterday in this series with a very, very poor call at first base in which he thought the runner had missed the base when very clearly he had not. And, of course, he was a little distracted. So we're waiting to see what the delay is and what's going to happen here. But Buckner right now is being tended to. Top of the 2nd inning, scoreless between the Rays and the Brewers. 2 outs right now at that top frame. 1-2 count coming up. And Misiorowski threw about 26 pitches or so. Not really a great visual as the broadcast continues to cut to children dancing in the stands as C.B. Buckner is being dealt with a potential injury, so maybe not there. Also, Marlins have tacked on a couple more runs, up 8-0 right now over the Chicago White Sox. We'll have plenty of baseball right now as we get to some of the later starts. Again, we have day games all throughout, so we'll keep track of these results too. Got some bets that we'll track as well, including we'll throw some on the Angels, see if they can stay inside of that for the first 5 so we can track it throughout the show. But we'll, to keep it going, cover all of our bases. When we come back, we're going to have Matt Brown with us. Of course, host of Long Shots is going to talk with us. We got some golf to get to. The Valero Texas Open. Get some best bets and more from Matt when we return here on Money Moves. So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You know, this is one of those topics that no one really wants to think about, but if you're a parent, a homeowner, married, or helping take care of aging parents, it's something that honestly deserves a little attention. I'm talking about estate planning. And before you tune out thinking it's complicated or expensive, that's actually why I want to mention Trust and Will. Trust and Will makes estate planning feel way less intimidating than it sounds. They offer modern, attorney-designed wills and trusts that you can create online. And the process is surprisingly straightforward. In fact, you can create a will in as little as 30 minutes. That includes things like guardianship for your kids or pets, how your assets are distributed, and even healthcare directives. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your loved ones with Trust and Will, the most trusted name in online estate planning. Go to trustandwill.com/future to get 20% off. That's trustandwill.com/future for 20% off. trustandwill.com/future.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, back here here on Money Moves. We do have a ton going on. C.B. Buckner officially replaced there at home plate for the Milwaukee Brewers Tampa Bay Rays game. It was an errant foul ball, so we'll get an update, but we do have a new home plate umpire in charge of the contest there. Also some pitching changes and a little bit more. Blue Jays first on the board in the bottom of the fourth inning against the Colorado Rockies. Rockies have been a little bit of a problem in this series, won the opener. And right now, Blue Jays up 1-0, bottom of the fourth, runners on first and second. We will keep you abreast of everything going on in Major League Baseball, but let's talk a little golf as well. Matt Brown is with us. Long Shots is the podcast. Make sure you check it out wherever you get your pods. There is no better golf handicapping podcast out there. There's no better trio to discuss it than Matt, Wes Reynolds, and Kelly Bidlin. Nice enough to give us a couple of minutes here. But first off, you are a baseball guy as well. You and I have chopped it up about hardball here and there. It is a day game day. Anything going on? I know you already have something cash. Do you have anything in the pipe coming down at all?
Yeah, I'm already home on the one that I liked the best. I've kind of been doing at least early season here, these like little first 5 same game parlay with like a total, whether I think it's 2 trash pitchers and then kind of like first 5 and then like an over or first 5 and an under, depending on how I kind of view the pitching matchup. And so did have Skeens in the side of him and Abbott and went with the Pirates. And then I've been just adjusting a little bit on the totals because, they let you do anything now. So just like the alt. So if I'm going under, then I'll, plug it up a run. If I'm going over, then I'll take it down a run. You're getting plus money on it whenever you do it, regardless. And so basically kind of taking some of the bite off because Skeens plus 5, I think was minus 170 or something like that. I think it was today, like heading into this one. So pairing it up with kind of how I thought being a low score. I understand you were on the bad side of that one, unfortunately, but I ticked it up a run and then got that one home. But yeah, that's the only one I really, really love today. But man, this early season baseball, I do think that there can be some overreaction stuff that we need to pay attention to. And I think Skeens, the demise of Paul Skeens was certainly one of those out there where people were thinking that woe is me, when really it was just 2 misplayed foul balls that really contributed to him getting pulled after 2/3 of an inning.
I certainly thought he was cooked and that the career was going to be coming to an end relatively soon. But
it's all Livy Dunn's fault, right? Isn't that what we heard? It's all Livy Dunn's fault. She's dragging him down. He's got to get rid of her and all that.
I think I would choose other things over baseball if that were the case. But anyway, Matt Brown with us as we have a golf tournament to preview as well. The Valero Texas Open is coming up this week. As you look at the odds board, some spots have Fairway Jesus, Tommy Fleetwood listed as your favorite. The commonality, though, as you look at these prices, not something we're used to seeing, Matt, when you look at some of these tournaments as the favorites, all in the range of that 14, 15 to 1 range. If you just look at the surface outrights, it would say that this is almost anybody's tournament. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I mean, so this one right here, the other thing that's a little bit interesting in the handicap here, we talked a little bit about it on Long Shots, probably something should have talked about a little bit further, is just, especially the bigger name guys that are already in the Masters next week, their motivation could be a little bit different than some of the other guys. And that's one of the things why I started a little bit further down the board than I did at the top of the board. Because some of these guys might just be trying to kind of hone in something before they head over to Augusta. Certainly Ludwig collapsed a couple of weeks ago. Maybe he's found something in the film that he wants to go in and work on here before he heads over there. Same with Tommy, kind of sloppy a little bit here and there. Maybe there's just stuff that he's working on. So that is something to take into account. Like, don't lose your mind if you see one of your guys doing something a little bit different out there and maybe not getting the exact results that you want, because this is a tune-up for a lot of these guys for the Masters. And trust me, they care way more about the Masters than they care about the Valero.
Yeah. So does that create, I would assume there is some variance there? Like, do you dig a little bit deeper on a board like this? Or are you still, when you're modeling, because you do it a lot, do you still just weight the things that you weight for a course like this and just play them how they are and hope that maybe some of the guys that are coming up in your model aren't going to be working on things heading into Augusta next week?
Yeah, I mean, the shortest guy I've got on the cards, 25 to 1. I had a 27 to 1 after that, and then it jumps all the way to 70 to 1. And then I've got, a couple even triple-digit guys in this. And there's guys that I think that are playing well, guys that I think could pop here. And again, I think guys that have a little bit different motivation than some of the other guys that know that they're going to be playing next week.
All right, let's talk about some of those guys then outside of what you have. So give us a few of the outrights that you've got for the tournament itself. As Eugenio Suarez, by the way, with a 2-run shot, 4-3 game between the Pirates and the Reds.
I saw you mention, I heard you say something about C.B. Buckner a little bit earlier, too. I'm sure the teams are just heartbroken that he's not behind the plate anymore with the way that his season has started.
Yes, I would. We'll see. Actually, the comment yesterday, I don't know if you saw the play at first base where he misread it. He wasn't even looking. And one of the announcers was, I'm paraphrasing, can't wait to see what he's got behind home plate tomorrow. So we'll see if that's the case.
Yeah.
But obviously, right now, not behind home plate, considering the errant foul ball that he took. All right, so outrights, you've named a couple. So in totality, how many outrights do you have, and who are they?
Yeah, so I actually played 6 this week, which it's a bigger card than I normally play. I'm kind of normally in that like 3 to 5 range, but once I'm getting into triple digits, then you kind of know I'm getting a little bit crazier on the board with that, and so I'll add one typically with stuff like that. And so shortest guy on the board with me, Matt McNeely, a guy I weighted very heavily stuff around the green here. These are hard greens to hold. I think there's going to be a lot of scrambling / around the green stuff that we're going to be focusing in. He's inside the top 30 in that last 28, last 16 rounds. He's actually, despite not being a long guy, he's really good on par fives, which is going to be important this week. And he actually makes birdies at a pretty high rate as well. So really like me some Matt McNeely. That's the shortest guy on the card. And then Sepp Straka kind of fits the same mold there as Mav McNeely, a guy that's not a bomber for sure, but you don't have to be on this course. Accuracy a little bit more important, and might even be a little bit more important this week than in years past, is they're going to grow this rough up about another 3/4 of an inch. Used to be like 2 1/4, going to be 3 inches this week. So maybe it's a little tougher to play out of the rough, and maybe there's an advantage to these guys that are in the fairway more often. Sepp Straka certainly one of those guys that you can kind of count on there. And again, same deal, birdie or better percentage up there, approach, iron game, absolutely fantastic. So those are the shorties that I'm playing this week. And I think that those guys, again, not necessarily looking forward to the Masters. I'm pretty sure they know where their win equity lies when it comes to winning at Augusta. So I think that they're going to be fully focused here to try to get the 7-figure payday at Valero.
Matt Brown with us again. Long Shots, the podcast. Make sure you check it out. Part of the VSiN podcast family. Like, rate, review, subscribe. I know you already have, but still, if you haven't, go ahead and check it out. One of my favorites on the network that I listen to, outside of course, the ones that I'm on. Those are 1 and 2, but Long Shots, number 3 for sure, of course.
It costs nothing to go in and just subscribe to all of them, right? So, I mean, just go in and you just hit the button. That's all you got to do.
Very good point. Very good point indeed. All right, matchups. Let's talk about this. There's a lot of different ways you could attack these, but I always like to ask handicappers like yourself, do you target certain guys that you want to play against in matchups? How does the modeling factor into when you're looking at some of the matchups?
Yeah, so it was interesting this week because I'm actually going against 2 guys that Kelly and Wes are backing this week. So I am actually fading 2 dudes that they actually are playing. So I'm going against Johnny Kiefer. I'm going against Ryo Hisatsune. I'm playing Yella Miraju against both of those guys. Johnny Kiefer's had one good performance, and that was last week. And 3 before that, missed cuts. He's been consistently in the finishing market in the, in the 60s and the 40s and stuff like that. And so I get it. There's a lot of narrative around the fact that he lives in San Antonio and that, home course for him and all of that. There's a lot of guys that live close to a lot of courses and play them all the time and don't go out and can't beat the other best players in the world at those courses. And so I'm not really buying into that narrative. I think the price just got way too short based off of that. So I went up against him. And Hisatsune, honestly, I'm just worried about his workload. I mean, this guy has played every single week but one since January. And I know people are going to roll their eyes like, oh, man, it's just golf. But you're flying from place to place. You're living out of a hotel room. It's not all like it's not all just this crazy awesome life and all of that. And so playing against him as well. And both of those with Yella Miraju. The long shot guys that I do have from an outright perspective, Alex Smalley, you can find him in the 70-ish to 1 range. Kind of does everything like he doesn't really jump off the page at all with any of that, but kind of does everything all right. Jordan Smith about 75 to 1. And then the triple digit guys you can find out there, Adrian Dumont de Chassé. Yes, you can find him at triple digits. And then also Zicheng Dao about 125 to 1 out there as well. And before I let you go, JVT, I do want to say I am bribing people, a blatant bribe to go and subscribe to our new YouTube channel, to the Long Shots YouTube channel. All you have to be is a subscriber. We're going to go in and we're going to pull the list of all of our subscribers whenever we get going next week, and we're just going to pull some people out. I was fortunate enough to go to the Masters a couple of years ago. I bought a whole bunch of swag and all of that, and so we're going to give some of that away. All you have to be is a subscriber, and we will randomly give away some stuff.
Oh, I like it. Go subscribe to the Long Shots YouTube channel right now. Don't waste any more time. Matt, we were up against it. I appreciate it, and I will just say to you, because I saw you a couple of days ago, in 27 days, you and I can have a libation. How about that?
I listen. I put it in the calendar, buddy. I put it in the calendar.
All right, bud. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Matt Brown again, Long Shots. Check it out wherever you get your podcast, and go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, go to VSiN.com. Make sure you check out everything I have to offer, because baseball season, of course, is here. And VSiN Pro just made it a whole lot more profitable. The MLB AI player prop projections powered by Opta AI have been absolutely fantastic. Data-driven projections for both hitters and pitchers compared directly to DraftKings lines, so you know exactly where the value is. And every day, break it all down to the top value plays, strong plays. You don't have to do the heavy lifting. It's easy. So get access now with a VSiN Pro subscription, and then hit up VSiN.com/MLB props. We have a lot of NBA to get to. We got more guests that are going to join us coming up in 15 minutes. Tim Murray will be with us, get his thoughts on what the Final Four will hold for us on Saturday.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Still a lot going on. We got some good ones out there in Major League Baseball in these day games that are underway. An entertaining one taking shape out in Cincinnati at the Great American Ballpark, where Eugenio Suarez, with a 2-run shot, has brought this to within 1 run. So 4-3, Pittsburgh up on top of the 7th inning. We will keep track of that. Nobody on, nobody out so far for Ashcraft, who is out in relief. The Astros, this is one we focused on a little bit. Would the Astros be able to get to Garrett Crochet and give themselves a shot here? They are. Crochet has given up 2 in the early going, and they currently lead. Houston does 2-1. In the early portions of this contest against the Boston Red Sox. Crochet was a pretty solid favorite, but remember, as we had discussed, the market was betting that thing down. So the early going right now, bottom of the first, runners on first and second with 1 out. Crochet trying to work through a little bit of trouble in the early matchup against the Houston Astros. And one that got to throw in something so we could track it throughout. Have a little bit on the Angels here at Chicago. Scoreless. Bottom of the first inning between these two. Runner on first. The story here, I think, is going to be the total as well. Total close 6 with some inclement weather all blowing in. So that will be in our focus as we go along throughout the day. But NBA, of course, we have a full schedule tonight in the association that we do have to get to. A little bit about last night, though, and we had discussed this, and was one of the things we got right. The other we got wrong in Major League Baseball, the tough beat, as we discussed to open the program. But the Orlando Magic last night, in the spot of spots, at times I tend to poo-poo situational betting, and maybe to my own detriment, because they do work. And when you talk about a team like the Orlando Magic, I mean, you talk about put up or shut up or anything in between. This was going to be a situation where this team is either absolutely dead or they do have some pride and they are professionals. And the Magic do get it done, albeit in a little bit of a sweat. 115-111, the final score. Magic get a win to kind of get off the schneid, but more importantly, bounce back from a disgusting 139-87 loss to the Toronto Raptors, though they did make it a little bit hard. Orlando had lost 7 out of 8. Now they've won 2 out of 3, depending on how you want to spin it here for the Magic. Still somewhat of a lifeless club, but it does spin nicely into today, because the Magic have the second leg of a back-to-back against the Atlanta Hawks. And this is a massive game right now in the grand scheme of the Southeast Division. The Hawks have taken command of this division, but still plenty of roadway for them to slip up should they lose a game like this to a division foe. Orlando, meanwhile, of course, still trying to solidify their spot in the top portion of the play-in, maybe even somehow, some way, dig themselves out and still finish inside of the top 6. But this is almost the inverse of what we saw yesterday for the Orlando Magic. Magic were in a good situational spot. Back at home, coming off a big loss, and the rest advantage versus an opponent that was playing a second leg of a back-to-back in a third game in 4 nights. Now today, they have to take on Atlanta. They are the team that is coming in off of no rest, off a big game, second leg of a back-to-back and third game in 4 nights. Meanwhile, Atlanta does have a day off here in between, and really some pretty good rest, because they only have played 2 games in the last 5 days, I believe it is. So the Hawks have, I think, everything you want in a situation like this to get it done. And remember, Atlanta at least took care of business situationally just the other day. They were catching the Celtics in a pretty good spot. They had a rest advantage. They, of course, were looking for revenge, and they get it done 112-102 against Boston. Part of a 2-game homestand. They had beaten up on the Kings prior. Now they hit the road here for Orlando. We'll have best bets a little bit later, but I'll take the low-hanging fruit here with the Atlanta Hawks. Some of the market moved a little bit against them. You're starting to see some 2.5 start to pop up. Initial opening numbers were about 4, depending on where you looked for the opener, but do think that Orlando is in a very brutal situation, and the inconsistency from the Magic have also been part of this. Injury report, pretty clean for the Atlanta Hawks. Jock Landale, the only notable name up on the injury report with an illness. Orlando, Anthony Black, still out there, as was Jonathan Isaac. Franz Wagner has been updated to questionable, so this is going to be a big name to watch for the Orlando Magic to see whether or not he will make his return tonight. Now, for that, we talked it's actually oddly similar to what the Suns game was yesterday. Remember, Dylan Brooks was going to make his return for Phoenix. Didn't seem to make the biggest difference. And now here, Franz Wagner in his first game back. One would expect that maybe it's not going to be massive, but we will see if he does make his return at what that looks like. So Magic potentially getting Wagner back today, which is why you see this line dip. So sit back and wait. FanDuel's looking at 2.5, juice to the favorite side. Still think Atlanta's playable if Wagner's going to be out there. Boston and Miami also on the card, and we should probably address the elephant in the room, which is we have a lot of big favorites today in the NBA, which is kind of the theme of these daily cards. Philadelphia is a 14.5-point favorite over the Washington Wizards. Houston is an 18.5-point favorite over the Milwaukee Bucks. Toronto's laying 12.5 against Sacramento. Let's see. New York laying 14.5. Denver laying 16.5. I'll have something on that, though, coming up in a little bit. And then San Antonio 14.5. But Boston and Miami, one of the few that we do have a single-digit point spread. Celtics a 4.5-point favorite, total 229.5. A somewhat important game. Really, it's more for Miami than it is for Boston at this point. Boston Celtics injury report, though, solid, questionable, or should be solid. No real questionables for them. On the other end for the Miami Heat, only name worth noting is that Norman Powell will not play for Miami tonight as they're 4.5-point favorites. Total at 229.5. Initially, we saw this open. Double check to see what my notes had to say. Yeah, 228.5. So we're moving up a little bit. We know how Miami wants to play. And I thought Zach Cohen brought up a really great point for a Heat team that plays as well as they do defensively, allowing things to happen like, of course, mid-range jumpers and whatnot. I mean, you're talking about a team that's got a lethal guy who can score on those, and Jason Tatum, who's playing extremely well. We know that Jaylen Brown's going to be out there for Boston, too, so it does seem like a pretty good spot for the Celtics. No real discrepancy in terms of the rest advantage either. Both teams coming in off a day of rest, playing their third game in 4 nights. Nothing to really write home about here in that regard. But a couple of these teams on this card do have some negative rest situations. Let's talk about some of these big favorites, for example. Houston taking on Milwaukee. First and foremost, the Rockets are just not a trustworthy team at all when you look at the way that they have been playing as of late and some of the opponents that they have lost to. Obviously, the one that really sticks out is the loss to Chicago a couple of days ago, where they were an 8.5-point road favorite, Houston. They have slipped up in big spots. So do you really trust them overall, laying a big number anyway, considering their failings previously? Now you consider the fact that the Bucks do come in here, despite the fact that they're tanking and not playing particularly well, with a massive rest advantage. Bucks have been off for the last 2 days. Rockets are playing their third game in 4 nights in the second leg of a back-to-back, so that's something that works against Houston here. But we talked about them yesterday. There was the two reach out and try to catch the falling knife spots last night. It was Houston, who was a small dog at home to New York, and it was Orlando, who was a short favorite at home to Phoenix. Both of them ended up getting there. So now the Rockets on the second leg of a back-to-back, can you trust them once again to get this done, but as a big favorite? I would say no. Given the fact that the rest advantage is such for the Milwaukee Bucks, I think you could see them staying inside of this number. Don't really trust the Rockets in some of these big favorite roles either. For Milwaukee, too, injury report, the usual names, but it is worth noting Kyle Kuzma not going to play. Kevin Porter Jr. is still out. Bobby Portis is out. Taurean Prince, as we know, is out. Miles Turner out, too. So you've got a list of notable names here for Milwaukee, thus the reason why this is listed the way that it is, but don't know if you trust the Rockets in the role of such a big favorite. Also, in the second leg of a back-to-back and a third game in 4 nights, another big favorite, the Toronto Raptors, who are in the same situation. Sacramento Kings coming in on 2 days of rest. Pretty big number for Toronto as well. Do you trust that they're going to be able to cover this thing at home, given the negative scheduling spot for them against a Sacramento team that comes in pretty well rested? And these do matter, as we've discussed a ton of times here on the show. When you look at the rest spots, all of these situations, you see them play out a lot of the times against some of these against some of these teams in these spots. Remember last week, speaking of the Raptors, tried to test the theory with the young New Orleans Pelicans, who are second leg of back-to-back, third game of 4 nights, went out there, ended up not covering. Notable names on the injury report, too, for Toronto they have to keep in mind with such a big number. Scotty Barnes is questionable to play today. Emmanuel Quickley is still out as well. Brandon Ingram, too. So those are 2 names that are going to loom large. You could be looking at a game where you're trying to lay 12.5, and you don't have Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, or Brandon Ingram. So keep that in mind as you're waiting to see what Toronto is going to be here. But the big dog that I think is worth looking at might be Utah tonight against the Denver Nuggets. That is a very big number for Denver against a Jazz team that has been playing with some pluck here. And you're looking at some of the young guys like Cody Williams and Ace Bailey that are playing really, really well when they've just been handed the keys. And the market seems to agree. Playing at home against Denver, we saw this open 17.5 or 17 in some spots. We're starting to see 16.5s appear at a couple of places. We'll see if this dips any lower. But I do think Utah is good enough to push a Denver team that defensively, we know that they have been winning these games, but have also slipped a little bit defensively. And I think that this might be a tough situation for Denver to walk into Utah with a team that's got really nothing to lose except 4 games, and they want to do that, but with some high upside offensive talent that has been playing extremely well. I think you can stay inside of a bloated number like this if you're the Utah Jazz. So we'll have more best bets coming up a little bit later, but a couple of sides in the NBA that I think are definitely worth looking at. We'll solidify those when we get to the end of the show. Folks, if you need something to help you out here, check out Sharp Plays. Founded in 2011, the Sharp Plays just completed another dominant run, including a 2025 campaign that saw bankrolls double, 15 straight years of winning, and it's all documented. Records and logs posted publicly at sharpplays.com for full performance auditing, something that separates the Sharp Plays from most of the betting industry. When the Sharp Plays moves, sportsbooks take notice. Advanced AI tools and trusted insider intelligence, identifying price value before the numbers shift, respected, watched, feared. Start winning with them at sharpplays.com. All right, a couple of updates really quickly before we go out and join one Tim Murray. Top of the second, scoreless out there in Chicago. Wind blowing in. Seems like it is holding up. 4-3. Pittsburgh currently leads Cincinnati, bottom of the 7th inning. And the Red Sox, look at this. We've got a high-scored one. They have tied it up 2 apiece. We are at the top of the second. We'll keep track of those really good ones and more as day baseball is underway. Tim Murray, though, joins us next. We'll get his thoughts on what's going to happen in Indianapolis this weekend.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You know, certain things happen and you don't really make a connection until a little bit later. It now strikes me as, oh, I get it, why Kelly Bidlin gave me a Franz Wagner card as he walked out today, because Franz Wagner is coming back. And so I didn't really understand it. I don't know if this is worth any money. I assume that it is not, because I don't think Kelly would have just given it to me so easily, but I also don't know if I trust Kelly's evaluation of player cards, so I will keep track of it nonetheless. I have a Johnny Unitas card that's worth $50. That is the most expensive thing that I have in my possession back in my place. The other thing that I have in my possession that I would say is priceless is Memories with Tim Murray on VSiN Primetime, and he's nice enough to give us some time here today on the Progressive Guest Line. Tim, appreciate it as always. Let's start, because we actually have a Crown tournament as well. Yeah, thank you. That was a good segue. I know, appreciate it.
What a transition.
Lots of schooling there that really bought into that. Let's talk a little bit of basketball, though. I want to start with UConn, Illinois. Oddly enough, and maybe this is because we kind of just know how good the other two teams are, I find myself more attracted to this UConn-Illinois game, more excited to watch what is going to transpire between these two. I was on with you guys yesterday, and I have made the statement, I like Illinois. I'll wait to see if there's a cheap money line price. Do you agree? What do you like in that matchup between the Illini and the Huskies?
Yeah, I do actually like Illinois a little bit here. You look at the size that Illinois has. They're the biggest team in college basketball. And it's crazy to say. I was about to say I trust Illinois more. I don't know if I do. I mean, you look at Danny Hurley. We've said it a million times on this network. The run that he's on, ATS, straight up over the last 4 years, 17-1 straight up, 17-1 ATS. But I think, JVT, and you kind of always turned me on to this over our years doing shows together is because of that run and the last thing that we saw, the reason we have this number at what it is right now. I mean, you look at Ken Pom and Bart Torvik. Once again, those are not gospel by any stretch of the imagination, but they do have those numbers a little bit higher, right? Ken Pom's 4, Bart Torvik is sitting at 3. So there is a belief that maybe UConn's a little bit pricey because of the way that Sunday ended in the fashion that it did, and, of course, what we've seen from Danny Hurley. So, look, I think when you look at these two games, as you know, and most of our listeners recognize, this is the tightest it's going to be from a betting standpoint throughout the whole college basketball season. But I do have a future on Illinois at 15-1. I got it back in February and didn't feel really great about it until Florida got knocked off in the second round, JVT. But yeah, I think for me right now, I don't think there's a real race to bet Illinois if you do like that side, like you and I do, because my guess is that you're going to see more public support on the UConn Huskies. And look, this is not a knock on Matt McCall, who was on VSiN Primetime on Monday night. I really like Matt McCall, but he said he was surprised that UConn was the underdog. And I think you're going to hear a lot of that over the next couple of days. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised, JVT, if you start to see a little bit of UConn movement here, and maybe this game goes off closer to a pick. But I agree with you. I think I ultimately will be on the side of Illinois come Saturday evening.
Yeah, I'm going to sit back and wait because I think minus 130 is playable now on the money line. So if you get it a little bit cheaper and, God forbid, you get minus 115, minus 105, hey, hell, even money. I don't know if they would get to the point where they would go off as a dog, but we will ask Chuck Esposito. He's going to be with us in the second hour about that one. What about the total for this game? Any read here, 139.5? I feel like this could go a bunch of different ways. We've seen these two teams play in a couple of different games. Any read on how this is from a scoring and pace standpoint?
Yeah, I think you're going to hear a lot about the Lucas Oil Stadium, sight lines, all of that. Look, the projection right now is 144 at KenPom, so that would not be very cheap for the under, but I would be under a pass. I think when you look at these two teams, JVT, they're not an up-tempo team. Illinois around 300 in pace. You look at UConn, they're one of the slower teams in college basketball. And you even look at the end of the Duke game, and things really started to kind of slow down a little bit. I had under in Duke UConn. That was, it was a dead over. However, at the under 12 media timeout, it was 148.5 and it landed 145. So things did slow down a little bit. And then you look at what Illinois has played in the last two games. Granted, Iowa and Houston, two of the slowest teams in the country, but they played games with less than 60 possessions. So I know that Illinois has the ability, as we saw in the first round of the NCAA tournament. We've seen multiple times throughout the regular season, JVT, to get out and go and score a bunch of points. But I think for me, I'll probably would rather look at the under here, knowing that it's the first game of the two. Maybe this thing gets off to a little bit of a slow start. But I think from a pace standpoint, these two teams are more under teams, in my opinion, right now, going head-to-head. So I think I would probably Illinois and under right now would be the two looks for me when it comes to the early game on Saturday.
For some reason, I want to say your middle name is John. Is that correct?
It is correct.
I knew it. All right, I remember that. I was going to say Timothy John Murray joining us here, host of VSiN Primetime, and, of course, host of the College Football Betting Podcast. Yes. Now I remember the incorrect spelling of John, as many Johns without the H would attest to. All right, let's get to the other one, Michigan, Arizona. We really haven't seen any movement here. This open pick, market said, nope, Michigan should be slightly favored at minus 1.5, and since then, absolutely nothing. 157.5 has been the total. This looks like, Tim, it's a high total. It's a 1.5-point spread. I say this all the time in the NBA, these games that are like 1.5, 2.5 with a total of 240 something. Why would you get involved? Because there's going to be some volatility. Yep. But pre-flop, we are held to that. What do you make of this? Michigan is a 1.5-point favorite. Who do you expect to come out on top here?
After my champion went up in flames in the second round, thank you, Florida Gators. We had to turn our attention to somebody else. And I picked Michigan. I think you could make an argument that Arizona, Michigan, obviously, were the two most obvious selections to pick when it came to picking a champion. I think my ever so slight lean would be to Michigan here because of their three-point shooting ability. They're a top 30 in three-point shooting. They shoot the three more than Arizona does. But look, not shooting threes has worked just fine for Arizona, as we've seen all throughout the year. They've lost two games. They lost on the road at Kansas, and they lost to Texas Tech in back-to-back. Outside of that, no losses for this Arizona team. So they are doing just fine not shooting the three. But when you're talking about a game that's lined this short, I have to give an edge one way or the other to a team, and I think the team that shoots the three a little bit better would be Michigan. But that all being said, JVT, come Saturday night, I'm not going to have a pregame position on this game because I don't think you really should. I think you should go into this game and wait for Arizona or Michigan to take a lead and see if you can grab 3.5 or 4.5. I think back to the Sweet 16, Nebraska and Iowa. That game was lined 1.5. At the under 4 media timeout, Nebraska was up 12-2, and the line jumped out to 7.5. So I grabbed Iowa plus 7.5. They went on to win the game, but I think that should be the way you go about it. I don't know about you, JVT. I would be stunned if this game was a blowout one way or the other. It's hard for me to envision these two teams as good as they are, as I would say similar as they are. Both are enormous in the front court, have very good guard play. I just have a hard time imagining this game being a 10, 12-point game. So if Arizona jumps out to a lead, grab some Michigan. If Michigan jumps out to a lead, grab some Arizona. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, especially as you pointed out, with a high total like this. It does feel similar to an NBA game. So I would look in game, but if you made me pick a winner prior to the game starting, I would slightly lean towards Michigan.
All right, before we get you out of here, last couple of minutes, you are a college basketball freak. Do you have any crown thoughts for us? Do you even care? I find it hard to care at all. I mean, it's post-NCAA tournament. No, it's going to start today, but it's going to go through it. I can't find the bandwidth.
I just wanted you to say, with all due respect, after you called me a freak. So, no crown bets. I think Humans is going to head over there, so Humans might be the guy to look at. Oklahoma, this number is crazy. It's jumped up, 4 points here?
Yeah.
The one game I would say that I'm interested in from a, side note, I like Illinois State plus the points against Auburn. That's in the NIT on Thursday, Hinkle Fieldhouse. Dogs have been barking in the NIT so far. Auburn 3-0 straight up to get to the Final Four, but they are 0-3 ATS. I'll take the Redbirds catching points. We've seen some movement here. I grabbed 7. There were 7.5s out there, but I think Illinois State at Hinkle Fieldhouse. I'll take the points with them. And JVT, maybe you should venture on over to the NIT semifinals. Hinkle Fieldhouse, where Hoosiers was filmed. Have you ever seen Hoosiers?
No, that I have no clue what that's about at all. No, I know what it's about. It's high school basketball. Gene Hackman.
High school basketball, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Bobby,
I got the actor.
Is it Bobby Plump?
Okay.
Yeah.
See, you don't even know. See, nobody knows. Come on now.
Well, that's
all right,
the real person who hits the shot.
Oh, okay. Tim, thank you very much. Appreciate it. At one Tim Murray.
Jimmy Chitwood. Come on now.
I've got, I assume these are names. Hey, if you've got a group chat full of hot takes, Cut was built for you. Cut is a social betting platform that lets you bet directly against your friends and other users on basically anything. Sports, politics, pop culture, and even personal bets. Now you can get a 15% deposit bonus in your first deposit when you use promo code VSiN. Head to cut.com, KUTT.com, or download in the App Store. Use promo code VSiN.